What's up, ladies and gentlemen, Neon Pow here, and this week we're doing part 9 to What If Naruto Was Raised by the Akatsuki. That meaning if you need a refresher or you need to catch up, please make sure to check out the description and the card above for that playlist. Now, before all else, I would like to do a massive thank you to Sassyeggroll for helping me create this part, so make sure to show a ton of love down in the comments. Also guys, don't be slacking on me. Let's try to hit this video to 500 likes, as this is the second to last part to the original Naruto series. So let's keep that hype rolling. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to stay up to date with the bi-weekly videos coming to you. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the video. We last left off our devious Jinchuriki being forcefully awoken by Obito to remind him that his mission in capturing the one-tailed Jinchuriki, Gaara. Naruto was in an extremely stressful situation, having to come up with something to make his family happy and having to save his longtime friend Shikamaru by sacrificing his newer friend Sasuke. This situation led him to a diabolical plan that would allow him to capture both Sasuke and Gaara. With that, we now jump back a few hours prior to when Naruto was awoken by Obito. Kabuto has just snuck into the hidden leaf in order to set up a plan of his own. He knew the intricacies of the village from his earlier observations as a spy. Furthermore, he noticed something very particular. Gaara had changed. He was helping rebuild the village his own people had helped destroy, as well as treating his siblings less coldly. It was obvious his encounter with Naruto had quite an effect on him. With this, Kabuto hoped to take advantage of these changes. After some time of stalling, Kabuto rushed towards the young shinobi of the sand and immediately began telling the story he had come up with. Gaara was confused onto who Kabuto was, but he was aware that he was supposedly a subordinate of the person who orchestrated the recent invasion, Orochimaru. Kabuto came to Gaara to tell him that Naruto was told to capture Sasuke tomorrow. Doing so would let him be awarded. Naruto said he would do it for the award, but Kabuto convincingly told Gaara that he didn't want any more innocent people involved in his master's plan. Knowing that there were other higher-ups in the village involved with him, Kabuto came directly to Gaara because he wasn't from the village. With Gaara's new helpful attitude and him being aware of Naruto's sinister side, he buys the story and tells Kabuto he will do everything in his power to put a stop to this. Kabuto gave him some more information about each of the members he would have to face, as well as directions to Orochimaru's hideout, telling him the best time to act would be at dawn. As Kabuto left, he smirked to himself due to everything going as intended. Gaara went to the apartment he and his siblings were staying at in order to tell them what was going on. Seeing it was still early into the night, Gaara hoped the two of them would help him come with a plan of some sort. There, however, were 3 people who had overheard this story, one of which was Sasuke himself. Heard that the rumors were true and his former teammate was in fact a traitor, and not only to the village, but to him as well. He ran off as soon as he heard this to sort his thoughts and plan his next move. The second person was Shikamaru, who was trying to take a nap, but now that he knew what was going on, he had to help, even if it was a drag. The last of the eavesdroppers was an agent of the Root sent to spy on Gaara while they were staying in the village. This is the only reason Danzo didn't oppose to him staying, leaving immediately to let his master know of the information he'd acquired. Shikamaru was the only one left who had heard the entirety of Kabuto's intel. He chased after Gaara, who had left moments before, formulating a plan of attack as he went. When the informant arrived to Danzo, he was unsurprised to know that the outsider Naruto was a traitor. Knowing it was Orochimaru who had asked the boy to stay in the village, he couldn't oppose it any more than Hiruzen could. After all, it was the snake who had given him his arm in the first place. Even with that act, he'd still be in debt, and now wasn't the time to think of that. He was after the Uchiha, and as unfortunate as it was, he couldn't simply allow him to be in the hands of Orochimaru for him to weaponize against the Leaf. Not only that, but his life would be cut short if Itachi knew of his brother's demise. Couldn't afford to let the boy die, at least not now. The only good news was that he was reminded of someone who would prove to be something quite useful to his future endeavors. He turned to his spy, telling him to form a squad together, prioritizing the capture of Sasuke Uchiha before all else, but, if possible, also capturing Shikamaru as the next objective. Somewhere else in the Leaf, Shikamaru had chased Gaara down all the way to his apartment. Out of breath and questioning if Sasuke was even worth it at this point, he considered turning around and just telling someone else to deal with it. However, a comment Kabuto made stuck with him. Shikamaru was usually able to figure out complex issues like the one he was facing fairly easily. For some reason, this case was different. which meant something fishy was going on. He didn't know Naruto like he did in canon, but he could tell the boy was surely strong and self-motivated by his ambitions. He didn't think Naruto could go as far as to capture his friend for some simple award. There had to be more to the story. Was he forced to? Did he have a good reason? As much of a drag as it was, his mind wouldn't be at rest until he asked Naruto these questions in person. He let out a sigh and barged upstairs into Gaara's place of residence. He opened the door and they all just stared at each other for some time before Gaara finally asked if he was one of the people who had overheard his conversation with Orochimaru's servant who had sold him out. Shikamaru asked what he had meant by one of them, before deciding it didn't matter much seeing as he didn't know any of the Sangenin well enough to trust their response. So he cut Gaara off and said yes, he was. Temari was pissed off that he would dare interrupt Gaara when not only did he ask the question, but he also was intruding upon their property. Before she had a chance to act, Gaara silenced her, asking Shikamaru if he had come to help them. Shikamaru said yes, and before Temari had a chance to protest, Gaara invited him in. As he came in, they all began discussing what they had come up with for the plan so far. Eventually, Gaara and Kankuro sat there as Shikamaru and Temari argued with each other about what should be done, creating a more concrete plan as they continued. Kankuro eventually grew tired of this and went to bed, telling Gaara to wake him up whenever it was time to head out, assuming he could get any sleep. The two of them eventually left to gather the members they agreed upon to join them in their operations, and Gaara was left there alone as he tried to do the same thing he'd failed in days, negotiate with Shukaku. This had proven mostly unsuccessful thus far, and he was at the stage where he was even ignoring Gaara. As childish his behavior was, Gaara couldn't comment on it, or even think about it as he continued in vain to control the Sandy. Several hours later, Shikamaru and Temari were able to gather only Shino, Kiba, and Shoji out of the bed considering what time it was, the last of which had to be bribed. Shino, the most essential to their operation, was able to come along due to the events of this mission happening several weeks before the one in canon. As it was nearing sunrise, they barely had enough time to get Gaara and Kankuro and head out. They needed to go stop Sasuke and whoever was capturing him. On another perspective, Danzo's root agent who was tasked with capturing Sasuke was running low on luck. He tried asking anyone available if they could assist him with this important mission, but they all either seemed busy or weren't around. As he attempts to search for people to join him, Sasuke sprints onward to the location that Kabuto had told Gaara. He was running on nothing but of his emotions right now against all reason. How could Naruto possibly betray him? Had all they've been through meant nothing to him? Was he just a nuisance during his actual task of gathering information? He didn't know. He didn't know at all, and his pace slowed the closer he got to the location. He eventually stopped and fell to the ground in anger, and then began having a mental breakdown. He then attempted to calm himself, trying to rationalize why he even came out here. The same, however, could not be said by the retrieval team who had just arrived at the hideout. Staying hidden from view, the team of 7 sat and discussed what role each of them had. Shino, already knowing his role, went inside, dispersing his bugs all throughout the hideout, latching many of them onto those to sleep. Gaara suddenly heard Shukaku's voice for the first time in ages, saying that one who had bested them last time was also carrying a bijou inside of him, that being Kurama. Seeing as Gaara wanted to use the tail beast's power so badly, Shukaku would bestow his power on the condition that they show that arrogant fox just how weak he was. The temporary partnership would take some time to link, so it would postpone his teammates' plan, but it would pack a bigger punch in the end. Gaara wondered what exactly the tail beast planned on doing that would make him speak out after so much time of silence. Nothing good was to be certain, but Gaara thought that allowing the One Tails to do what he wanted would satisfy him enough to the point that they may be more cooperative in the future. Gaara said he'd agree to the condition as long as he wouldn't harm anyone gathered here. Shukaku responded as he was taking over Gaara's body that the only ones hurting should be the people in the base as long as his allies took a few steps back. Gaara, partially transformed, went into an area where the One Tails could fully transform, and once he did, he let out a chuckle, telling all Gaara's allies to sit back and enjoy the show. As they backed away from the area, a great amount of chakra was being formed in the One Tail's mouth, its chakra growing more and more perceivable as the attack evolved. The chakra, now taking form, appeared to be a growing dark violet mass, slowly growing as more chakra was put into it. Seconds later, it seemed to have stopped growing, and the fully formed tailed beast bomb gets shot out towards the base. It moved quite slowly, Shukaku showing his disappointment by his groans and stomps. However, as the giant orb made impact, its detonation site grew many times larger than itself. The beast's mood instantly shifted at this, him erupting with laughter, him taunting the Ninetales all the while. Everyone in the base was confused by the explosion with the exception of Kurama, who had felt the approaching attack in time to cover Naruto in enough chakra to shield him from the impact. Annoyed it took so much of his chakra to do so. The blast hadn't killed anyone important, but many of Naruto's allies did take some severe damage. Except Shikamaru, who was out in the forest using what little time he had to locate Sasuke. As the dust cleared, Naruto was the only one still standing. He was confused and disorientated. Then, as he looks down, he sees blood all over his body. But it isn't his own. He looks down even further and sees Kin is in critical condition. All the emotions that have been bottled up finally explode, and the Ninetale takes hold. Kurama uses his opportunity to aim all his power at that sorry excuse of a tailed beast, Shukaku. Further away, Sasuke heard the explosion created by the tailed beast bomb and pulled himself together and quickly headed out towards the sound. However, before he gets far, he's confronted by none other than Shikamaru. While this is happening, Kabuto is watching in the distance and is amused by everything. His chaotic plan is turning out quite nicely. He then makes his move towards Orochimaru's direction, attempting to use the confusion to his advantage. The world seems to be thrown into chaos. How will all this turmoil turn over? Find out on the next episode that will wrap everything up for the original Naruto series. And that's ending this part. Now guys, if you enjoyed the video and want to show your support, make sure to smash that like button and leave your comments below as I love interacting with all you guys. Now, until the next video my peeps, much love, Neon out.